What's going on, everybody? It's busy Wednesday. You notice Shad's not here. It's going to be Ben and I today. Like a baton, Shad passed off the hoodie to me. So let's get into it. I mean, I know we got the comments up here. Canopy, Ben, myself, we've been big fans of Canopies for some time now. I mean, they finally did the 10-for-1 split that they announced back in September. I've seen a lot of people today thinking that this is a net negative for the company. I saw even somebody saying that this is some sort of dilutionary event. I mean, I don't hate it. They had to do this. They're going to take the stock up from, I think, about 820 million fully diluted shares down to about 82 million fully diluted shares. If you want to see what a stock does that has that kind of float, look at Air. That's not saying that they're not going to dilute moving forward, but I mean, I don't hate this move. That being said, I'd be very cautious around the name. I'd be waiting for this split to actually happen. Price is going to go up. I've never seen a stock rise after a reverse split. Usually the dust settles, and then there presents a pretty good buying opportunity. What do you think? What do you think about this move from Canopy, Ben?
Yeah, I like it for the most part. And the reason I like this move is because they're preparing themselves to have a lower float so that they can more easily move on the exchanges if there is good news. So that's a net positive from that perspective. I think overall reverse splits get a bad reputation because like 90% of the time they reverse because their share price is too low, so they can't list on the exchange, so they have to raise the share price artificially, or they have really shitty performance overall, and their stock price has gone down so much that they have to reverse split to keep their listing requirement. So if you're doing a reverse split because of those reasons, yeah, I don't like that. I think it's garbage. But if you're doing it to lower the share count for the most part, and so that you can capitalize on future catalysts going forward, then I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and I mean, Mitchell, I mean, obviously some people do think it's a red flag. I mean, I'm probably going to catch heat for saying this. Canopy Growth, in my honest opinion, is not going anywhere. They have exposure to a lot of assets that have a lot of staying power in this industry. People want to hate on them. They think that there was value destroyed. The share price is in the gutter. You're completely right. I'm going to go to the mat, and I will still say Canopy, and with Canopy USA, with their international business, they're going to be a formidable player in the cannabis space for a while. Granted, today they got wrecked. They were down 20%. I've also never seen the stock announce a reverse split and not get hammered. So, I mean, that it is what it is. If you believe the Canopy, and this is not financial advice, if you believe the Canopy is going to be here 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, this announcement from a value perspective is probably going to be your best entry point to get into the stock, because it's going to split, it's going to get beat up, and then you're going to be able to come in and from a market cap perspective, you'll be able to pick it up cheaper than it is today.
Now, I will add too that if you think, and well said, Anthony, on all those points, we'll add too that if you think Canopy was a good trading vehicle on U.S. reform news now, which it was, it's still 3x during the last cycle. So even with that large flow, it still moved and still trade 100 million shares. Wait till it reverse splits 10-1 and it's a lot thinner, right? So if you're a trader, this is a trader's dream on any sort of material reform news. I think Canopy is definitely going to be now the go-to trading vehicle to capitalize that if and when it comes.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Duke, on this. Going with a proper company like GTI, I'm saying what I'm saying with Canopy, with the caveat of I wouldn't invest in Canopy over a GTI. I wouldn't invest in Canopy over a Trulieve, over a Verano, over the big US-based MSOs that are currently on their way to free cash flow production and producing free cash today. So take what I'm saying about Canopy with a grain of salt. If I'm going to go in to 5 names and I want to get the most out of my portfolio on the backs of Schedule 3, safer banking, Canopy trades as a proxy to the U.S. cannabis market. Canopy, just like Ben said, will be a huge beneficiary of the upwards momentum in the sector if and when that happens. And that is the thesis, as well as I do think that they have staying power moving forward in the industry.
Yeah, yeah, and they probably do have a place in the portfolio. They're just not up in my perspective. They're not there with GTI or Curaleaf. But
No,
is it more of a YOLO play given their risk in their operating metrics right now? Yes. So maybe that's like you underweight that in your portfolio, and then that weighting is below a GTI or Curaleaf. We're not saying that should be number one, but does it
no.
have a place in portfolio if you're looking for outsized returns, but then more risk, and you can balance that off with more sure names or blue chips in the industry? Yeah, then yes. And as a trading vehicle, 100%, because no matter what happens, Canopy always trades on that reform news and always, is among the biggest movers on those reform catalysts.
Yep. And then the second headline of the day, I mean, we had Alabama Medical. The medical cannabis market in Alabama had a big announcement today. Friend of the program, Kim Rivers and Trulieve were awarded one of the 5 licenses in the state of Alabama. So, I mean, that's going to fortify their position in the Southeast. She's building a formidable player in this Southeast corridor. And I mean, just like what I've said with Georgia, I think that she's going to quietly build the Trulieve model in another state in the Southeast and start to own this space. I mean, what do you think about that, Ben? Did you look into any of the names? Because I didn't actually look into the other 4, which I didn't recognize as they weren't one of the MSOs. And there might be an MSO hiding in there under another name that they applied for the license for.
Yeah, I did see the other names. Nothing that I recognize to be a subsidiary of an MSO. I probably have to do more
Yeah.
digging, so I'm not sure if they are or aren't. You talk about names like Sustainable Alabama LLC and Wagon Trail MedServe LLC. So I'm not sure any affiliation to the big guys. But one of the and this was really good news too, because this was 5 vertically integrated medical licenses out of 33 applicants, and for Trulieve to actually get this is quite a feat, because they only had around a 15% chance or whatnot. But what I also found interesting too, Anthony, was that the law required the AMCC, the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission, to award at least one of the 5 licensees to a company that is at least 51% minority owned. And it so happens that Trulieve Alabama was that minority owned company. So it looks like the MSOs have taken this kind of a social justice requirement or initiative, use that in their favor to acquire a license. And usually it's you don't see that. It's sort of the other way around, the small indie guy doing that. So good job on Trulieve to use that initiative to get the license.
Yeah, for those that don't know, there was also a mandate in Florida on the licensing rounds that were for Black farmers, which was a social equity, social justice movement. Trulieve didn't use that in their licensing process in Florida, but there were actually a separate cohort of licenses and applications that would go in for the Black farmers in the state of Florida, which is interesting to see. I mean, I'm curious to see how this market progresses. Alabama, for me, it's not like a sexy name. I'm sure it's going to do numbers revenue-wise, but I'm really curious to see how cannabis actually translates into the Southeast states and how these markets start to grow on a go-forward basis. But it's just another win for Trulieve, and I'm curious to see where she goes next in the Southeast to complement the Florida footprint.
Hopefully Verano can join the party at some point too, because they had that license before, and that sort of botched rating scaling system, and then they got there was a lawsuit involved that was ultimately dismissed. But hopefully Verano and some of the other multi-state operators join the fray at some point.
Yeah, I mean the Southeast is a special animal. I saw that Aaron and the boys decided to challenge the ruling on the initial round of the licenses in Alabama, and they lost that appeal. I went to school up in Tallahassee. I mean, it's the South. It's not South Florida. It's a good old boys part of the country. You know who you know. Don't piss the wrong people off. I wouldn't have wanted to piss off those regulators, but we'll see. I mean, I'm sure they'll get into Alabama one way or another, or they will focus their efforts elsewhere moving forward. But I mean, regardless, Verano's got a hell of a footprint that they're building in the States right now.
Now, before we move on quickly, I'll share something, personally on my front. I actually went to school in Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Did you?
Yeah, a while ago.
Say what?
I had a baseball scholarship with the Houston Astros. and I ended up
Yeah.
doing something called a draft and follow. So I went to a school called Shelton State. So anybody, Shelton State, any watchers, hi out there. But it's been a while. But yeah, I went down there. I went to school for a year. Ended up not making the team that I was drafted in, the Houston Astros, because I had an arm injury, and went the conventional route. But I know the South and Alabama down there, and it's definitely a different animal. I remember going to the the baseball stadium in the back of a pickup truck, for example. That's the way it was back then. So it's definitely different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, the South operates a little bit differently. And then next on our list, we got Curaleaf. This is big news. I'm curious to see how Curaleaf responds to the uplisting. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are naysayers. Oh, well, how's it worked out for TerraSend so far? Blah, blah, blah. This solves the prime broker and the custody issue. And Boris probably has people that are waiting in the wings and that are interested in Curaleaf to get in now that they can actually hold the paper. Curaleaf was the largest component of the CSE. So seeing them leave the CSE is also interesting. We actually shot an episode we shot a TDR Cannabis exclusive this morning with Boris that we'll be putting out tomorrow. It was a great conversation, went over a lot of things. I mean, his emerging market background, how he truly does see cannabis in the United States as a true growth opportunity. Analogous to some things that he saw in the emerging markets back in the 80s and the 90s. And I mean, we'll be rolling that out tomorrow, but this is huge for them. Shad's actually on his way to the TSX to shoot a segment with them tomorrow morning with the bell ringing, which is why he's not here today. But I mean, I think this is huge for the stock, and it just bodes well for them moving forward.
I think it's really strong news. I hope investors kind of don't give up on this, or don't look at this as something that's not material just because the share price may or may not move in line with them moving over. But I think it's worth noting that you have to look at this in terms of what it leads to going forward. This is to position itself for an eventual uplisting on the U.S. exchanges, right? So I would caution investors not to look at it and say, oh, GTI is up 4% today and Curaleaf didn't move, or this stock is up 8%, Curaleaf didn't do anything today. The TSX is not about the immediate moving of the stock in so much as it's for positioning for uplisting and gradual institutional participation. So, they're playing sort of the long game here. Don't look at it as a short-term vehicle and expect all that much. But it is a good move because this positions them in the top to get that quick uplisting when they're able to.
Yeah. And then also, I know that we've seen a lot of stuff going around Twitter with Boris and his Schedule 3 by the end of the year. That was from another interview that got misconstrued. He did clarify his position on Schedule 3. I'll let everybody wait until the video drops to see his time frame. But we're pretty close on our timing between what I've been saying for a long time and what he believes Schedule 3 is going to come out. But I'll wait for the actual video to drop. But it was good. I mean, their stock was up 10% today. It rebounded from yesterday. And I expect, I don't know if it's going to be smooth sailing, but I would expect their stock to excel on the TSX versus the CSE. And I can't wait for everybody else to get off in one way or another and either go to SIBO or the TSX versus the CSE moving forward. Because I mean, we've been dealing with the shenanigans of that exchange for a while now. And I know there's a lot of people in cannabis land that are looking forward to switching. And then I guess psychedelic news. This is more your wheelhouse other than mine, Ben. But the FDA actually received an NDA from MAPS, PBC, so MAPS Public Benefit Corporation, regarding an NDA application for MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD. So I mean, I know that we've talked about MAPS. We've talked about their protocol for PTSD, leveraging MDMA a couple of months back. Where does this lie in the progression of their business, Ben? And how is this different from what we saw announced a couple months back?
Okay, so what we saw a couple months back was the second data set for their MDMA assisted therapy trial called MAP2. And those results were very robust. It met safety, very good efficacy. So they leveraged that data and then package that into a new drug application. And this is significant because this is the first time ever an NDA for a psychedelic assisted drug or protocol has ever been submitted to the FDA. This has never been done before in neuroscience in the psychedelic sector. So this is a very monumentous moment, not just even for MAPS, but the whole sector in general. So there's two ways that this could go here. They could do something called a standard review, which generally takes between 6 to 10 months, or they could do a priority review, which would expedite the time to look at the application before that. The FDA has 60 days exactly to respond to that, whether they accept the priority or standard review or reject the NDA and don't look at it. So we should know whether the FDA moves forward, sometime by mid-February or so. So this is a very, very monumental occasion. Of course, Numinous could be a beneficiary of that because they have a relationship in which they will be, administering their protocols if it goes through. So a lot of moving parts going on here. Excellent news for the sector, and 2024 is shaping up to perhaps get the first drug and therapy protocol ever in the psychedelic space.
What happens if it's rejected? I mean, is there like they can reapply based on different parameters or augment their application? Or is it kind of like, you guys applied this, you shot your shot, we're not even going to accept the application?
You know what? You got me on a gotcha question right now, because I actually do not know if it could be amended. I think it could be amended, but I'm not sure. So I'm not going to speak on that. But obviously, the best thing for it to be would be, for the application to be all buttoned up and then accepted at the point of that timeline, the 60-day timeline. If it isn't, then obviously this would, lower the chances of it ever again approved, whether it could be maneuvered or, a change in their application, or even like in addition to the trial, maybe they don't have enough data to accept it at this point. So either of those scenarios is not the scenario you want to see right now. But very exciting stuff. I think it looks good because they did 2 rounds. They have 2 data sets, 2 rounds in the trial. They both came off, like gangbusters, home run results. So I think it looks good, but we'll see. We'll know within 60 days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's kind of going to be canary in the coal mine for the entire psychedelic sector. I mean, this is going to be a learning experience for everybody. MAPS is taking the first dive in, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'll be following. TDR will be covering the whole way. This is really big news, and I'm very exciting for all the veterans and everybody suffering from PTSD, because it's a very hard condition to treat.
So I was actually excited to get into the mover section today. Last 2 days have been rough. There's a lot of takes out there for people, but let's go off. Let's go with your pick off the bat, Ben. I mean, walk us through MSO's price action, what you thought happened yesterday, and then let's take it from there.
Yeah, my title in my notes for all our viewers here was, what the hell happened with MSOs this week? And I think, especially yesterday, that was the big question among all investors on X, for example. Everybody wanted to know what happened, because the price action had been very constructive over the previous few weeks. Higher lows, it broke out of that 690 area resistance. It looked like it was sort of on a V line towards 8. Nothing spectacular, but it looked like at least there was some modicum of momentum. And all of a sudden, the last 3 days, everything cratered. It started off kind of slow, just a small pullback, and then yesterday, it actually had one of its worst years, a top 3 worst days in 2023. So people are wondering what the heck was going on. And there's a lot of theories out there. It came on the heels of the HHS document release, and people are thinking, okay, perhaps people bought thinking that, or sold because HHS or the DEA didn't reschedule. That was one theory. There's lots of different theories. But I understand that you heard a theory, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little birdie tell me today that it was actually a fund that was selling yesterday, tax loss selling, getting out for the end of the year and then getting ready to reload going into once we're into 2024. That's what it looked like. I mean, to see Cresco down, I think 12 or 13% on 1.5 million shares traded, like that's a heavy day. Intraday, I mean, I was looking at names that were just getting plastered. The cannabis was down 10% on over 1 million shares traded. I mean, this was an institution or a fund selling. This wasn't scared retail. And if it was, we've been saying for some time now that it's probably not getting rescheduled this year. I came out yesterday around 9 o'clock in the morning and literally said, guys, it's not getting rescheduled this year. Enjoy the rest of the year. Have a happy holidays. Let's revisit the sector in 2024. And I mean, conviction will tell you that 2024, 2025, they're going to be big years for this sector. I'm sticking with my guns. I think we get it rescheduled by March. Thinking it was going to get rescheduled this year, despite hearing differing opinions from several pundits in the space, and that doesn't detract from the legitimacy of what they say. But I mean, develop your own opinions. Look at what everybody else is saying. Do your own research. Come up with your own opinions. And if you bought thinking that rescheduling was happening by year end, and because it's not, that means you're going to sell your stock. You were in this for a short-term trade. You were in this because of a conviction trade for the growth of the actual cannabis sector. So sell it and get out anyway. And someone else is going to come and buy up your shares. But yesterday, as far as I'm concerned, was an institutional just year-end sale.
I think your whatever source told you that, I think is correct, because the more I was thinking about it yesterday, what could it be? I don't think it was HHS. I think most people realized that it wasn't going to happen this year. So you can't, even if there was some disappointment among investors that rescheduling didn't happen, and that deadline had already passed, by the way, several days before, it'd be like, it wouldn't create that sort of downdraft in the markets. The Curaleaf thing was being floated too, that they're coming off the CSE, but that didn't really make sense to me either, because there's very, like, these OTC stocks are not part of any index funds, or very few. So there wouldn't be a lot of index fund selling there, even if Curaleaf were to leave. So that tax loss selling does make a lot of sense. And people got to remember too, MSOs, and we've talked about this on the show, MSOs was about even on the year. It was actually up to begin the week, a small amount. But tax loss selling is not just a 2022 phenomenon. It can carry back at least 3 years. So so it looks like that's what happened, right, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's all speculation. I mean, everyone's speculating. Like what Boris had said this morning, there has not been an opportunity to see such a dislocation in the price of the stocks versus the fundamentals. And really, the only inherent thing wrong right now with the sector is we're all hanging on a whim from a regulatory perspective, and the laws are all screwed up. And essentially, cannabis companies are working for the U.S. government right now via 280E, because all of their extra cash and basically all of their bottom line goes to the government. Once that is fixed, it's not going to be smooth sailing, but the dislocation is going to be smoothed out of the market. I mean, I don't want to be like a cheerleader here, and I'm obviously talking my own book to an extent, as I have an interest in the sector, but it's common sense to me. Stop worrying about when, and stop worrying about if, and more so worrying about when. And that when, in my honest opinion, is 2024.
Yeah. I would tell investors, take advantage of days like yesterday, if you can, while we still have it, because if 280E gets rescinded, institutional players, the uplistings come, institutional players start getting in, you won't have these down 13% days because one fund sold. The exchanges will be the price action will be a lot more stable than what we saw yesterday, right? So if you bought at 6 or whatever, I'm not saying that that's the ultimate low, but to get dips that size on basically no material news in the market can be construed as a gift for the long term, if you're a long-term focused investor.
Definitely. And I mean, also, just to give a little bit of perspective, I don't know if there's any other industry that's public that a fund could do that kind of carnage in one trading session that we saw yesterday. So, I mean, we can ebb and flow, but I mean, we had names that were down double digits yesterday that are up double digits today. Curaleaf, Cresco, I mean, Verano, Trulieve, they're all up about 7.5%. So, I mean, their stocks are rebounding after getting kicked in the teeth yesterday.
So much for the efficient market theory, eh?
Yeah, I mean, this industry's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot, and one thing is definitely taught me is patience. You have to be patient. And I mean, what'd you think of that FOMC meeting? I do think that bodes well, implication-wise, going into 2024. If Powell's going to cut 3 times, it'll become a completely risk-on environment.
I was a little surprised by the market reaction because the market had been, at least on the stock exchanges, had been tearing up, and it tore up even more because most of this was already known. In fact, the Fed's dot plot for 2024, I think, actually reduced the amount of possible cuts that they were looking for in 2024. However, if you look at the overall picture, it's very good because they came out,
Yeah.
Powell came out and said that basically the rate hiking cycle is at the top or has been established. So it's only going to be lower from now. The Fed basically they declared victory on inflation. We saw the 10-year yield go from 4.2% to 4%, touch 4% today. That's a big move in the 10-year treasuries. So inflation expectations are going down. Market loved it. We're in a rate cutting environment now, and that should be bode well for risk assets. XBI was up 4.5% today, although psychedelic stocks didn't really respond. But yeah, we're in an environment that the market likes: rate cutting and perhaps a soft landing in the economy.
Yeah, and I mean, and people are forecasting small caps to rip in 2024, which will bode well for cannabis stocks, especially if we get regulatory reform, because not only will traditional rates be low, but cannabis companies will be able to get access to capital at cheaper rates as well. So it's going to be something. And I mean, I'm just going to bring this up for the hell of it. The MSOs grow total trash, stop smoking dispensary weed, and live a better life. I'm assuming this guy probably grows cannabis in his basement. He probably thinks whatever he's growing is absolute gas, and he's just the weed aficionado. I'm so sick of hearing this shit. Do you know who sells the most alcohol? Bud Light, Pabst Blue Ribbon, Natural Light, consumer brands, economy class brands. Whatever you think is gas, dispensaries can't carry throughout the entire value chain. I mean, this kind of stuff shows up everywhere, and it's just, I think it's personally ridiculous. And MSOs don't grow total trash. I've been to plenty of dispensaries in Florida, Nevada, New York, Colorado, California that grow very, very good flower. Maybe they don't grow what you like, or maybe they don't grow what you smoke, but to be honest, who the fuck cares what you think? I mean, I honestly think it's kind of ridiculous.
That is quite an impressive way, Anthony. Yeah. That deserves a hand clap there.
Yeah, I mean, so Brady Cobb and I met Brady from Sunburn in Houston on the way to MJ Biz, and we're sitting there in the line to get on our second flight, and we're talking about cannabis, and some other idiot starts mouthing off, "Oh, that dispensary, they only grow so and so's cannabis, like it's trash, like you got to get it from the legacy market." And I said the exact same thing. I'm like, dude, like, take your opinion and go shove it up your ass. Like, I'm sick of like these people that are snobs with like their heads in the air saying, "Oh, MSOs all grow trash weed." That is completely false. Plenty of them, and most of them do grow decent product that's regulated and safe at a decent price.
See, I don't buy that at all, because I mean, if you're an MSO, right, you have access to like master growers, right? It's not like you're getting like the bottom of the chaff, right? There's a lot of people who want to work for these companies, and there are a lot of good master growers out there. It doesn't matter what state or even higher out of state, right? They're going to get the right people in there to grow well, and some will do it better than others, but it's not something I encounter in terms of
I've seen quality. I've seen quality product coast to coast in MSOs and in dispensaries, and it's regulated and it's safe product. So I'll keep smoking it. People will keep smoking it as the industry keeps growing multiple billions of dollars on an annual basis, and you can continue with that opinion of yours. But it's much appreciated. So thank you.
This is another loaded genetics, right? You have a good master grower and you have the right genetics. You're like 3/4 of the way there.
Correct. This is another loaded question, and I'm assuming he's talking about price to sales ratio in terms of stocks. I mean, I've asked a lot of people on a multiple basis what you think the industry will trade at. I've got a lot of differing opinions. I think once 280E goes away and you start to see a mature environment, these stocks are trading somewhere between 7 and 10 times top line growth. I don't know where they trade on an EBITDA multiple. I don't think you're going to get tech valuations in this space, but I mean, I do think that you're going to get somewhere between that multiple on a top line. What have you thought about this much, Ben, as we start to see like a normalizing sector?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I think about more because I don't get to the point where I want to predict where it's going to be an actual number, because there are too many variables right now to really make that judgment. For example, 280E goes away. We all know that the tax requirement is lessened. We all know cash flow is going to improve. Earnings quality is going to improve. That's a given. But if you look at the States Act 2, for example, if it's something like that, David Joyce, he proposed like a federal tax on cannabis. So how much is that going to be replacing on the 280E right now? Is there going to be an excise tax? Is there going to be sort of, drip down to price compression at the dispensary as, competitors try to undercut one another now that they have more profitability from a less tax liability? Are we going to see price reductions at the dispensary level? So just things like that. Obviously it's a net positive. It's going to be great. But how much of that is going to be true savings from the tax savings number that they're going to accrue? Is it going to be 100% of that? Is it going to filter down into the things I just mentioned? So for that reason, I haven't really thought about a defined number in terms of price sales, price to EBITDA.
Yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it for today. A couple things before we log off. We want to have one of our listeners or one of our watchers on the podcast with us. So if you're watching and you're interested in coming on for an interview, or not an interview, just to come on and shoot the shit, have a conversation about cannabis, we're going to get one of our listeners to come up. How we're going to do that, DM us on Twitter, your hottest cannabis take or your take on the industry. Ben and I are going to read through those, and then we are going to pick one person to come on an episode here in the next couple of weeks. The second thing, we are doing a hoodie giveaway. The hoodie giveaway is live on our Instagram. We're doing it in partnership with Wiz Buckley and the Fallen Heroes Foundation. So by all means, go over to our Instagram, check out the giveaway and sign up. And we'll be executing that, I think, in the next week or two with the giveaway. But go on, follow us on Instagram and sign up for it. And I think there's more than one that we're going to be giving away with them.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to have a user come on for the first time. We haven't done this before, right, Anthony?
I think it'd be cool. Hey, we might actually have John come up if he's not camera shy. He's in here day in and day out, and it's we know that he owns the space, so it's good. I mean, this has been good. It's been I know that we don't have Shad on here today, so it's been a little bit out of whack chemistry wise, but
maestro. You did a good job.
Yeah,
it's always nice to have the maestro here, but.
And now we got the hook from Mitch.
All right. See you.
See you on Friday, everybody.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. And if you want to learn more about the emerging industries that we cover, then leave a comment below and let us know who you want us to interview, the questions you want asked, and the information that you want to learn. We want to hear from you. As usual, click on that bell for all notifications to get the latest information. Share this video